pain. It's an unavoidable part of each of our lives. And pain can shape us, but the question is, into what? What I've noticed, both in my work and in my private life, is that people tend to respond to pain very differently. There seem to be two common paths, and the one that we take can direct the rest of our lives. So that's what we're gonna explore in this video. We'll look at why some people turn pain into more pain, while other people transform it to help others. We'll look at how pain can become part of our identity, often without us realizing it. And you'll learn how you can navigate your own pain with awareness so it doesn't take control of your life. I want to start off by telling a story to lay the foundation for the rest of this video. A few years back, I watched a Netflix series called Bloodline, and it really stuck with me. It's about a family of 2 sons and a sister. And when they were young, they lost their sister in a boating accident. She drowned in this. And you see the different effect this has on each of them. Because their father blamed Danny, the eldest son. And he was beaten by his father, he was rejected, punished, and pushed out of the family. And in this series, you see the ripple effect that this event had on each of them. John, the middle son, becomes a police officer. He's the good son that keeps the family together, while Danny, who is carrying all this pain and resentment and guilt, spirals into crime and drugs. And the thing is, Danny didn't become a drug dealer and a drug user because he's a bad person. And John didn't become a police officer because he's more virtuous than Danny. But it's the way in which their pain was handled, in which they were treated, and the silent rules they were given afterwards that impacted who they became and how they acted. So this is what I want you to remember for the rest of this video. Our decisions and the way in which we deal with pain don't come out of nowhere. They're often shaped by our upbringing, our life experiences, the way we were treated, our genetics, unconscious processing. So that will be the foundation on which we're going to build today. At the start of this video, I told you that I noticed people generally respond to pain in one of 2 ways. Some people, when they get hurt, they then make an agreement with themselves that they're going to make sure no one else will ever have to hurt the way that they did, or at least that they will never cause this pain in others. And sometimes they even make it their life's mission to help people going through the same pain. So this could be the person that always felt alone and never really understood or part of the group, and that now makes sure everybody feels included. Or the little girl that never felt at home in school, who grows up to be a teacher to give other children a better experience. However, some people go through a similar pain and they say to themselves, I am never gonna hurt this way again. And they pull up their walls and they protect themselves, sometimes even at the cost of other people. So this could be the kid that was humiliated by his classmates, that now starts bullying other children to feel back in control. Or the woman that was cheated on by her past partner, that now interrogates and blames her current partner, looking for betrayal in every message and glance. And here's the thing, it's not either or. Most of us do both. In one area of your life, you might respond to pain with compassion, while in another area, you respond defensive. We're complex, and we tend to adapt in whatever way helps us survive. So I'm not making this video to blame or praise either behavior, but rather to understand what drives our behavior, so we can potentially redirect our course. Something that might surprise you, however, is that I don't think protecting others from the pain you went through is inherently better than protecting yourself. Both can be ego-driven responses that hurt you more than they help. Because when pain becomes attached to our ego, or in other words, when we become identified with it, it turns into suffering. And both responses to pain can actually keep you in this state of suffering. Pain has a direct cause. It happens in the now. So you fall off your bike, you lose someone you love, or you're fired from a job that you really enjoyed. Suffering, on the other hand, is what we build around pain. It's a mental or emotional story that we build on top of it, often because we're resisting or identifying with the pain. Pain is when your best friend moves to a different country and you miss her deeply. Suffering is when you then think to yourself, she must not care about me, because if she really cared about me, she would have stayed. Maybe it's just best if I cut her off completely. In this example, she might cut off the friendship and hurt her friend in order to try and protect herself from further pain. But this probably doesn't help because the pain of missing her will still be there. And now there is all this suffering to go with it. I also want to explore a different approach to the situation. One that may seem more noble, but is also a fear response. Maybe in a few years, this girl also gets the drive to move to a different country. But instead of listening and acting on this drive, she says to herself, no, I could never do this. I could never hurt the people in my life the way that my friend hurts me. So she buries her desire and keeps on living the way that she did. Her fear of hurting others the way that her friend hurt her is now keeping her from living a full and authentic life. And over time, she might even start feeling resentment towards the people that she loves. Finally, let's look at a version of this story where she doesn't become identified with her pain. After her friend moves, she misses her deeply. And this sometimes hurts. But she doesn't make it mean that her friend doesn't care about her. They call often, and despite the distance, they manage to stay close. She even goes to visit her friend, and she discovers something about herself, that she loves traveling way more than she even thought. So the real question isn't how we can transform pain into something good or noble, but rather how we can move through it without letting it take control, so we can live a full and authentic life. The answer to this question is simple, yet not always easy. Awareness. Because when you see how your pain has shaped you, the beliefs it created, the patterns it triggers, the fear it sparks in you, then you can learn to see through the illusion of your identification with the pain. Without this awareness, your fear will run the show. It will become a lens through which you see the world that drives your behaviors and keeps you stuck. So how do we create this awareness? In the next part of this video, I want to explore 3 different approaches with you that can help you to make your unconscious patterns conscious. The first approach is to pay attention to your emotional responses. Emotions are information. I would always push my emotions down and just intellectualize all the problems that I ran into in my life, so I wouldn't have to face the difficult emotions that were associated with it. And I was changing things on the surface, but nothing was really changing at the root. I could explain my behavior, but I wasn't actually feeling it, so I couldn't really shift it either. The real shift came when I learned to get out of my head and into my body. And I started uncovering all these things that were going on beneath the surface. The unease I felt when I was having a conversation and I thought I was in good company. Or the feeling of wanting to emotionally withdraw when someone got too close. These feelings were clues. They pointed to unmet needs, old wounds, beliefs I had about myself and others. And it's only when I began to see them not as problems to fix, but as messages, that I started to uncover all these patterns that were running the show without me even knowing. So start paying attention to your emotional responses, especially the ones that feel a bit out of place or disproportionate to the situation. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? If this feeling could talk, what would it say about me? What am I actually afraid of right now? And is this about something that's happening now, or is it something from the past? Asking yourself these questions can help you shift out of your automatic defenses and into a more conscious response. The second approach is to look for repetitive patterns. If you've ever heard yourself say, "Why does this keep happening to me?" there is a very big chance it's not just bad luck, but it's something in your unconscious that keeps directing you to these situations. So this can be repetitive relationship dynamics or ongoing self-sabotage. Maybe you were made to feel responsible for other people's emotions when you were younger. And now when you see someone in pain, you jump in and try to fix it. You think you're helping, but you're not realizing that sometimes this makes the other person feel less than or pressured to be okay. And you keep thinking to yourself, why do people push me away when I care so much? Not realizing that your urge to take responsibility for their pain blocks real connection and makes the other person feel broken sometimes. If this person doesn't become aware of their role in this pattern, it might continue to happen to them over and over. So instead of asking yourself, what's wrong with me, or why does this keep happening to me, ask yourself, what story am I living out over and over again? Because often our brain is trying to heal an old wound by recreating a similar scenario, hoping for a different outcome. The last approach that I want to share with you today is to use your relationships as mirrors. In today's society, there's very little actual physical danger. So most of the fear and pain we experience is associated with the fear of rejection, which, to be honest, can feel just as life-threatening. When we try to heal in isolation, it might feel like you're being introspective and you're moving forward, but in reality, you're probably just engaging with the parts of yourself you're already comfortable with. You're in a controlled environment, no real fear, no real trigger, no real possibility of rejection. But the thing is, most of our fears don't show up when we're alone. They show up in relation to others. That is because most of our wounds were created in relationships. Therefore, they only can be revealed in relationships. Your fear of judgment will only arise when there's someone there to actually see you. Or your fear of abandonment will only come up if there's someone you don't want to lose. So when you're alone, these fears might stay unexpressed underneath the surface. And you might feel fine or even healed until you get into a relationship, into a conflict with someone, and all of a sudden all your defenses are activated. That's not because there's something wrong with you, but because right now your wound finally gets a chance to speak. So if you're trying to do all your healing in isolation, you might feel stuck or confused, wondering why your insights don't lead to actual growth. And it's not because you're not working hard enough, but because some layers of your healing will only be revealed in relationships. When you start seeing relationships as mirrors, everything becomes feedback. And I don't mean that in a self-blaming way, but in a self-knowing way. Okay, so let's wrap this up and reflect on everything we've explored today. Pain is an inevitable part of our lives, and it often shapes us in more ways than we're even aware of. Whether you respond to it by protecting yourself or protecting others, both of these approaches often come from fear, and they stem from the same place, our ego. The real challenge isn't learning how to transform pain, but learning how to move beyond the fear and our identification with the pain by moving through life with awareness. Because it's only when we learn to face our pain without resisting or identifying with it that we can live a full and authentic life.